Hello, everyone, and welcome back to another AFL Fantasy Fanatics live show. We're recording live on Sunday, the 23rd of February, and the match sims have completed, and we are now looking ahead to the bit more of the real stuff in the community series starting this week, which is going to be really, really good. I'm your host, Bales, and you can find me at BAILSDT across the social. And as always, if you guys are tuning in live and want to leave a question or a play that you would like discussed, leave them in the comments in the live chat, and we'll get to as many of those throughout the show as we can. But as I said, appreciate everyone tuning in live. But if you are tuning in on the replay or on the podcast, come join us live next time, live on YouTube every Sunday night during the season and leading up to the season as well. Joining me is my fellow co-host and AFL Fantasy Fanatic is Tim Guest. Guesty, mate, how are you?
Mate, not too bad. I am. I'm decompressing. I've had birthday parties and the kids all weekend, and I thought, you know what, I better have a drink while I've just gone back to their mother. So yeah. Now let's talk some fantasy. I'm keen to find out. I haven't heard much about the games for the last couple of days, so yeah, keen to hear what's shaken out of that. But obviously, we had some big news today as well, which is, it seemed like we were pretty solid with rookies, but yeah, they're just fallen by the wayside.
Exactly. Yes, the unfortunate news of Jagger Smith, which we'll chat about very, very shortly as well. But yeah, it does suck obviously for Jagger and for Carlton. So yeah, hopefully speedy recovery for him, and he can hopefully get back. I'm assuming next season. But joining us is a couple of very special guests, and the first one has been on the channel a few times. He's already been on one time this preseason, revealed his early team. I'm sure it has changed 1,000 times since we last spoke to him. It is the number 2 overall coach from 2024 and coach of Pom United. It is Tom. Tom, mate, how are you?
Hi, Bells. Hi, Guesty. I'm very good. I've had a very fantasy-filled morning with one of my big drafts, and now excited to get stuck into some classic talk with some actual footy to talk about.
Yeah, just for listeners, you told us off air how many list spots were in this and how many teams.
Yeah, shout out to the FFL boys over in Perth. Yeah, it was a 6-6-1-6 draft with 17 bench spots. We turned the free agency off, so you have to draft your whole squad for the season, no matter what injuries come. So it's all a bit of fun when you're drafting Blake Hardwick at pick 359. Along with many other speculative picks in the high 200s.
Well, not that confident in Blake Hardwick, mate.
I mean, got forward states. If he goes back, he might get me a 70, which fits D6.
Yeah, it must have been the flavour of the day because you had a first ever draft in person, which was really good. So had a good time there, and we had a few picks done, but it took us forever to get going. Sort of had to get the ball rolling a bit more, but no, it was very, very good. So shout out to the boys doing that. So, but our other special guest ran a couple minutes late. He's doing another video beforehand, so he will be jumping on with us very, very shortly, which will introduce him when he jumps on. But Tim, for the listeners, obviously we got something very, very special involving the Content Creators Cup. What have we got?
Yeah. I've actually been pretty blown away. It's been pretty hot the last week or so. So, look, I mean, firstly, Infinite Wealth, we're putting out a brand new program this year, Master Your Money. In the past years, kind of the programs have been about investing. This is a little bit more about how to really master your money. I mean, I think I always kind of say, money seems to be the biggest constraint we have in our life. And if you can really get a handle on that, then it really, makes a big difference. So, we've developed this 5-step online program. You can register for that at infinitewealth.com.au/AFL Fantasy. And as an extra special bonus, what we've done as part of the Content Creators Cup is we've given one lucky punter an opportunity to be the 20th coach in the Content Creators Cup. So you go up against 19 of your favorite content creators and, show us what you got and see if you can, trump us all or whether it's harder than it looks. So, get on to infinitewealth.com.au/AFL Fantasy. The competition for the Content Creators Cup is only open till March 10. We'll be drawing it on our live show that Sunday. So, get in while you can and give yourself a shot of going up against all the content creators.
Yeah, beautiful. Looking forward to it. Looking forward to seeing who takes out that special prize there. Cool. We will get into the match sim games, but I think we will start off, obviously, with sort of the unfortunate big news of the day with Jagger Smith. Unfortunately, tearing his ACL in that game yesterday. So, Tom, it feels like these mid-rookies, unfortunately, we thought we were sport for choice, and obviously this is a very, very good crop of draftees, particularly the midfielders, but Sam Lawler obviously had a hairline fracture in his jaw and concussion. He's very touch and go for round one. Obviously, Josh Smiley did his hamstring a couple of weeks ago. All reports he could be back this week for the Community Series game. Obviously, Jagger Smith out for the season. But then you look at the other guys. Levi Ashcroft didn't play the first 2 games of match sim. Is he best 22? Does he play in there? We'll have to see, obviously, this week where he sits. Sid Draper in and around the mark. Does he get a sub? Is he best 22? That's another question, obviously. Finn O'Sullivan didn't score great. North Melbourne sees him more of an impact player than an accumulator. Then you've got a few others like Xavier Lindsay's is solid and a couple of others. But sort of where are you more looking at playing only 2 rooks in the midfield? Obviously, consensus has been a lot. 3 rooks has been what a lot of people are doing. But do you think it's 2 rooks? And do you think that maybe means a Nathan O'Driscoll becomes a little bit more on our minds as well?
Yeah, I think... I'm always been big on. I've had 2 rooks basically in all my drafts, so I will say I'm ahead of the curve. But I think it just goes to show that we need to be flexible with our team making. We can't get sold on a structure weeks out before the season. I also think that in specifically Jagger Smith's case, he seems to be pretty nailed on to have a pretty decent slice of the mid-pie at Carlton. So what opportunities does that make to maybe some mid-price guys? And without the rooks, maybe we have to include a couple more of these mid-prices rather than paying up for some premium options. So maybe look something like an Adam Cherry could be a bit more relevant than maybe he once was.
Yeah. Tim, are you a bit more nervous about the mid rookies? Is like I guess a few of them have got a few question marks. I guess Harvey Langford's probably the one that seems pretty solid. Are you sort of looking maybe going a few less rooks on your in your field and your midfield?
Yeah, look, I haven't made any choices yet. I mean, I've still got 3 rooks sitting in my team right now. But yeah, certainly with the news over the last couple of days, it's certainly starting to get a lot more shaky. I mean, we kind of had those high draft picks that we thought were going to be, pretty rock solid on our ground. I mean, I did start with 2. I then kind of pivoted out to 3. But look, I mean, there's kind of, and look, I mean, the rucks, obviously, we don't know what the hell we're going to be doing with the rucks, but that forward line seems to be coming together pretty nicely and, with a lot of value in there. So, we do have a bit of cash to splash. I guess we'll see how coaches use it best.
Yeah, exactly. No, it's going to be very, very interesting to see what people are doing. Even this week, obviously, a week's a long time fantasy, and we've definitely known that. And then still got these community series games and then opening round as well. So definitely something to watch. I've got a super chat here as well from Kobe Pember as well. So he says, my son Jackson, who's 9, is a mad Richmond supporter from WA and a passionate fantasy coach. And can you give him a shout out? So shout out Jackson. Appreciate you and your dad Kobe tuning in, so all the way from Perth, and hopefully Richmond can get a couple of wins.
Coach? Who's the better fantasy coach, Kobe or Jackson? That's what I want to know.
Yeah, Kobe, let us,
or one showing how to do it.
Yeah, well, Kobe, let us know who's the better fantasy coach. Beautiful. Alrighty, and we'll get into some of the match sim notes here and chat through these. So we'll focus on the ones that have happened the last few days. We won't focus as much on the ones from Monday. So we'll go from for Brisbane, Collingwood, Gold Coast, the threesome that was was it Thursday night or whatever it was. But very interesting game that was. Obviously split into 6 different quarters. So from Brisbane, the main midfield 3 was Lockie Neal, Josh Dunkley, and Will Ashcroft. So it seems like Will Ashcroft has taken that spot as that third main midfielder. Obviously, Lockie Neal and Josh Dunkley didn't look like they were really trying. Will Ashcroft didn't really look like he got out of first gear. But Levi Ashcroft's the first one, Tom. As I mentioned earlier, that didn't play the first 2 periods in that game and came on, looked pretty good in the next 2 quarters. But you're a bit nervous that obviously Premiership team Brisbane he's coming into. Do you see him still in the best 23? Do you see him as a sub? Do you sort of wait to see a couple of weeks? What are you thinking with him at the moment? I
think it's something that I kind of flagged from kind of the start of pre-season with Levi. Brisbane are obviously the Premiership winners. Like, they have a very settled side. They haven't really lost anyone in his kind of positioning. They're only Danaher really out of their starting Premiership side. So I have a feeling, especially because he's off, I think it was his shoulder surgery
yes.
in the over the pre-season. He's definitely a sub risk, a green or a red vest. So it's definitely a watch, but we do get an opening round look at him. So we get to see what that kind of looks like before we have to finalise our team.
Yeah, exactly. So that was mainly for Brisbane. For Collingwood, main midfield three were Nick Dacos, Harry Perryman, and Jack Crisp. So Harry Perryman was pretty good, popped up for a few +6s and got a couple of tackles as well. Tim, I know you've been pretty keen, and obviously we get the free look in opening round, but I guess this is exactly what you want to be hearing him playing in that midfield.
Yeah, exactly. Look, I mean, he's I've liked him right from the start, right? He's a prime candidate for, you know, a player that kind of breaks out, you might say, right? Changing clubs. You know, obviously there was a little bit of a question about the role that he was going to have, but, you know, everything that we've been seeing so far is that he's going to be in that kind of full-time midfield role, which, you know, suggests that there's some good value there. You know, the issue that we've got with him is obviously round 3 bye, you know, Callum Mills, Sam De Koning, Bailey Smith, you know, how many round 3 bye players. I mean, you know that I've been kind of toying on the aggressive side of that. But I think just the big complication we're going to have with Harry Perryman is round 1. Opening round, right? Because he's going to come out and have a game. They're not going to have Dan Houston there. And if he scores well, you know, I mean, depending on how people are going with round 3 bye players, everyone will jump on him. But if he scores badly, you know, even someone like myself who's been hot on him the whole preseason, it might be too much to not, you know, stick with your gut and go with him. So, yeah, it's going to be hard to see. But right now, he's in my side. He's been in my side since the beginning, since Fantasy's opened, and he hasn't left. And I'm hoping it'll stay that way.
Yeah, no, he looked pretty good, and obviously De Go wasn't there, and obviously he's touch and go for opening round, and Pendlebury played the second half. But it'll be interesting to see how that fits. But good thing was Houston played, and Perryman didn't even go anywhere near the defence. He was complete midfield, so very, very good to see. Kobe Pember just said there as well. He said Jackson had an awesome year in 2024, but still have a few points a week on him. Not sure it will last this year. He made top 15K last year and was chuffed. So hopefully you guys can both go quite well this year, and then good luck to you both, and obviously all the listeners out there as well. Moving through here, Nick Dacos, he's an absolute jet. That didn't look like any sort of plantar fascia or anything like that was bothering him at all. He was on top of the ground. I think he probably had a good 18 touches in a quarter and a bit. So, yeah, he's obviously set for a big year. Obviously, it just sucks he's got this early bye. But, yeah, he's looking like he's in for a fantastic year. His brother, Josh Dacos, looked like the main distributor off half-back, and Houston sort of was the second guy. So that's interesting thing to note. Obviously, good for draft for Josh Dacos, and we'll get, obviously, DPP if he continues in that role. But Houston, yeah, definitely something to keep an eye on. Obviously, we're not going to start him because he's suspended for opening round, but something to watch early in the season. And then Reef McInnes was another one to keep an eye on. 324K forward, played in defence, looked pretty good. So it's definitely someone that we could start if we don't have. We've got a lot of options, but if he has a big score in opening round, then maybe hand might be forced. And then from Gold Coast here, not too much because I don't think there's a lot of Gold Coast players we're really looking at, but the main midfield 3 was Noah Anderson, Matt Rowell, and Will Graham. And the big unfortunate news from Gold Coast was that Leo Lombard went off with a shoulder injury after a bump with Levi Ashcroft. So it didn't look too great and could miss a bit of time there. I don't think we've got an update as of yet, but yeah, not too great. And then obviously Sam Flanders, Toot Miller, and Dan Rioli didn't play. So a few key players there. Before we move to the other game, our next special guest has jumped on with us. He's very regular on the show here. It is Liam from Free Kick, the official AFLW Fantasy Podcast. Liam, mate, how are you?
I'm very good, Bales. Guesty, Tom, nice to see you, hear from you and see you all. I'm going very well. I'm now at the stage where I'm starting to actually pick a team. Preseason games are actually happening. And you were just talking about probably one of my favourite preseason games to actually watch because predominantly a first grade team, I reckon, for Gold Coast. And I think I saw a few just a ball movement tidbits that I don't feel like we saw last year.
Yep, no, it's definitely Gold Coast look very good, and they definitely, if they can clean up that away form, they're going to be definitely forced to be potentially reckoned with in this season. We'll move to Sydney and GWS. So main midfield three for Sydney: Isaac Heaney, Chad Warner, and James Roybal. And the unfortunate thing was that Callum Mills didn't play, dealing with mild plantar fasciitis. So something to definitely be watching. The mild makes it sound a bit better, but we get to watch in opening round and in the next game, but just going to be interesting to see. Liam, is there a bit of a flag for you? Obviously, with Callum Mills with his history of injuries, obviously, as I said, we get to actually watch in opening round. But is this sort of put a bit of a flag on him for you?
Oh, absolutely. It's anyone having an injury this late in the season is a flag, particularly for something like plantar fasciitis, which can be a recurring issue. Does it mean that he doesn't? Does it mean that he's automatically out of my team? Absolutely not. I still think if he's going to play this next practice match, I still think he's going to be excellent value. And if it just so happened that after 3 to 4 weeks, maybe 6 weeks, he does have to miss a few weeks with a foot injury, I think if he's playing in that team, he's playing midfield, I would still be comfortable picking him. It's if it does have an impact on opening round, say, or he doesn't play the next practice match, it starts to become more of a red flag.
Yeah. Yeah, no, it's, hopefully he can play this week. That'd be good to get a watch in the Community Series game leading into opening round. Errol Goulden, again, very much like Nick Dacos, just sort of did what he pleased and scored 107 points. So shout out to Geordie Decina for taking the stats from this. I did it last year, and yeah, it's quite hard when you're watching 10 players, we're having to rewind it, make sure the player got the stats. So shout out to Geordie Decina for taking the stats in this game here. But yeah, Errol Gould just did what he liked and set for another big year. Round 3 bye does suck for him, so probably more of an upgrade target. Matt Roberts looked pretty good off half back, scored the 53 points. So just a watch for this week and in opening round there. Ben Patton, Tom, is a bit of an interesting name. 458k defender forward. Scored 51 and looked pretty comfortable off half back. So I guess obviously the big question is if he's best 22 or not. But is if he plays, and depending on what he scores 90 rounds, is he someone that's of any interest to you with, I guess, a lot of these forwards that are in that 400k price bracket?
You mentioned the forwards. I actually kind of like him in the defence. I feel like we've got a lot of options in that sub 500k forward bracket where you can start 1, 2, even 3 if you're feeling very, very hot on a few of them. Whereas defence, that kind of Kitty Coleman kind of replacement price that we all had locked in there, we don't really have that many good options. They've all got certain negatives. I do worry about what his ceiling is, what he can score. There's quite but it's certainly an option. If he comes out opening round and kills it, yes, he is another round 3 defender. Let's just have a line full of them and close our eyes and hope. But he could be anyone playing in a moderately fantasy friendly role as a cheap defender. I'm definitely interested in.
Yeah, definitely one to put on the watch list if he wasn't already. Moving over to the Giants, the main 3 midfielders here were Josh Kelly, Toby Bedford, and Finn Callaghan. So a few people, namely obviously K's from the keeper leagues, that are projecting that Finn Callaghan breakout this year, and he's definitely potential. He could have that breakout this year. Cody Angove was one that really impressed me. Scored 67, looked good, particularly early. Bit of a small forward, 271k. So someone to keep an eye on. I guess a lot of these rookies that play opening round depend on what their score is early. So just someone to watch. Kieran Briggs, Tim, I know you love the Rucks. He had a tough battle, obviously, with Grundy and Laddams. Didn't play in the last quarter, scored 63 points. And looked pretty good. Apparently he's been really sort of burning up the track since coming back from that off-season shoulder surgery. So is 938k round 2 bye? Where do you sit with him? Obviously, as an option. Obviously, opening round could dictate what we do with him, but is he of any interest to you even with that early buy?
Yeah, he's in my team at the moment. Just with everything that's been going on the Rucks, I've been, I guess he's kind of just short up as a bit of an option for me. I think there's probably 8 to 10 points worth of upside there. Obviously the round 2 buy is pretty tough, but look, actually, Tom's probably a good one to have on here, and maybe I'll kind of unannounced pivot to him a little bit. Like Bales and I was kind of chatting about this the other day. we kind of noticed that. Well, I noticed last year a lot of coaches, including myself, were being a bit more conservative around the early round buys, making sure that we had 22 on field. Which I don't know, kind of feels a little bit old school. And I'm wondering whether we need to, or I'm wondering whether I think Chris was a little bit more aggressive during the buys. I'm wondering whether that's how you played it as well, and whether the fact that we've got a round 2 buy, if he's a pretty solid ruck option with some upside there, then maybe he's definitely worthwhile considering.
Yeah, I honestly think he's definitely worth considering. I think the ruck options are kind of falling away a little bit. We thought we had not a lot, then we thought we had loads, and now we're back to, do we just go Cherry and Marshall and close our eyes and hope? But I think because we're not really planning on having too many other premiums, if any, round 2 premiums, just having the one miss, it's not that big a dip. You're maybe losing 30, 40 points that round between that player and your 19th best score, which could get taken off and has to come on. And especially if we get a playing R3, like a Harry Boyd, for example, they can come on, you still get 22 anyway. It's definitely an option.
Well, as Xavier Barker's got the question there saying Briggs the best R2 option, at the moment, I think he probably is. And you mentioned it there, Tom, if you've got a playing R3, I've currently actually got Liam Reedy as my R3 if he's playing, and he can cover Briggs there. And there's a world where I could start Harry Boyd at utility and have 2 cracks at it if they're both names. So, yeah, I think Briggs at the moment I think there's a lot of question marks. Marshall's expensive, come back from injury. I heard Gawn, I don't know if anyone else heard this, but Troy Chaplin said about Max Gawn that they're going to be managing potentially throughout the year, like they've got more depth with Tom Campbell there. There's scenarios where they may play both of them. So that's big red flags for me. I'm not paying 1.15 for a guy that might get rested or sharing potentially with a Tom Campbell. Tim English, who knows? Jordan Sweet, is he going to have enough upside to really break out? And Tom de Koning, like obviously Pitney, we'll chat about that later on, but Pitney took the first CBA for both the first and second quarter. I don't know about the second half, but with Curnow potentially not there round 1, I think there's potentially, there might be sharing, Liam. Is that what you're thinking there with Carlton?
I actually think that there's a detail we can discuss later. We can discuss it now. But Mark Pittner did not play much in the second half of that game and was getting a bunch of rub-downs on the bench. So I worry that, I wonder if he's also might be carrying something. I think the bigger question there is can Mackay make it for back from round 1, round 2? He's probably going to be someone that forces their hand a little bit up forward, or do they think that they can play one of their younger, mid-sized forwards, maybe an Ashton Moyer, and try and play him up a size given his leap? But I'm leaning towards a Tom de Koning at the moment because I know how much his upside really can be if he's solo ruck, and we do get to know before the game, before round 1 starts. It's the first game of round 1. We'll get a chance to know if he's playing with Pitnet, then I'll pivot and I do look at an English or a Briggs.
Yeah, exactly. And that decision we made for us probably on the Wednesday night of round 1, as you say, if Pitney's named or not, and what did Briggs score in opening round. I think that'll probably determine that decision there as well. A couple of other rookies.
Bales.
Yeah.
Just one thing before we move off. Angove was playing very high as a small forward. I would have said he was almost playing more of a wing role and looked very good around goal. So it's not just that small forward. Yeah, okay, he might score 40s and 50s. I think he has some Harvey Thomas about him in how high he's being allowed to go up the ground.
Yeah, I like that comparison as well. And again, opening round, what does he score? And that will probably dictate if we pick him or not. James Leake didn't come on until the last quarter, unfortunately. He scored 20 points and looked okay, but you question if he's going to be there for opening round if he's not playing until the fourth quarter. But again, we get to watch this week and see where that sits. And Connor Stone looked decent off halfback, scored 56 points, and he looks like he's got a good role back there. So I think he'll be a fairly popular F7 or F8 option, maybe F6 if people trust him on field and what he scores in opening round. Moving to as they call it, the Summit Showdown, Adelaide versus Port Adelaide up at Mount Barker. So we'll start off with the Crows in the first 3 quarters where the Crows played their main team. The main 3 midfielders were Jordan Dawson, Matt Crouch, and Jake Saligo. And much to my being very happy watching Dawson there. He was the number one midfielder and quite clearly. So that's positive, but no ranking. So it's definitely something to be keeping an eye on there. James Petty was pretty good particularly after quarter time, scored 73 points. Didn't have as much midfield as what I thought. Maybe that was just to try and diff position, see what happens. But he's someone to be watching. Tim, what does it matter for Peatling if he's got these CBAs? Like, does he need like a certain amount for like 50%? Or are you still happy if he's playing like that fourth midfielder, high half forward? Is that something you consider, or do you think you need him to be that main midfielder to be picking him?
Well, I think the so-called rookie crisis might even play into this a little bit, right? Like, I mean, I guess it is a little bit of a concern. We probably wanted him having a few more CBAs, but look, if he's kind of rolling up as that fourth midfielder, you still think he's around the ball enough, and he seems to be a guy that can find the ball. So, priced at 64, 20, 25 points upside or something along those lines, you'd think would be enough. So, and along with him, like maybe an Oliver Hollands or something along those lines, then, that's maybe how we're filling out that midfield with those rookies kind of, going down like flies.
Yeah, exactly. My boy, Rory Laird, was racking up off half back, took 11 marks, I think, of his 12 disposals. So he was looking pretty good, getting a few plus sixes there. So he'll get DPP. We'll see if he's an option for us when the DPP comes around. Dan Curtin had some good moments, scored 29 points, played a bit deeper, did play on the wing at times. I question at 300k if he's going to be a high enough score for us, especially when we've got a Connor Stone, Cody Angove as well. As you mentioned, Liam looked pretty good. So Dan Curtin, if he's there and we don't have other options, he's one to consider. But I'm just a bit nervous about what his scoring potential could look like playing more as a forward. And Sid Draper, a bit quiet in this game, scoring, I think, 22 points it was. We're interested to see where he sits with Rankin back, but I'm hopeful he plays round one, but there is talk that they're not sort of locking him in just yet. Obviously, he was managed early in the preseason. So, yeah, something to keep an eye on there. Moving across to Port Adelaide. So, evenly split between 5 players, which probably not a surprise for a lot of people. It was evenly split between the usual 5, Jason Horne-Francis, Zach Butters, Connor Rozee, Willem Drew, and Ollie Wine. So, it was pretty much those 5 that were going through there. A few other names like a Mead and that went through for a few CBAs, but mainly those 5. Jason Horne-Francis, so Liam, he was fantastic again. He was very, very good in the Indigenous All-Star game. He's very good here. And then Connor Rozee and Zach Butters were quiet. I don't want to overreact for those 2, but do you think that if they've got the 5 midfielders, are you less keen on starting a Rozee or a Butters? And what were your thoughts on Horne-Francis? Obviously, we've seen these players with great pre-seasons. They normally go on and score quite well. Is sort of he risen up in your ranks for you?
He hasn't risen up too high in my ranks for me. I think the thing with Horne-Francis is that we know that I think he's more a Chad Warner than he is, or maybe he's an LDU as a scorer. He's really a burst away from stoppage, not accumulate at stoppage kind of player. I actually think Connor Rozee looked great. Even kind of when he was starting off half forward, was still drifting into the play, and I think that maybe. It might give me a little bit more hope, and particularly for Rozee and Jason Horne-Francis. I think the forward line issues at Port Adelaide actually give me some cause for hope, because they're probably going to be forwards that are going to go higher up the ground versus when they did have more depth in the forward line, it was more of a go rest, go sit deep. I actually feel comfortable picking a Rozee and a Butters, or a Rozee and a Horne-Francis if that's what you want to do at F1.
Yeah, agreed. Jordan Sweet was one I was keeping a pretty close eye on. Didn't really pass the eye test for me. I think he was on 36 points at the end of the third quarter. He ended up getting like a 60-odd when he played the fourth quarter, but I don't know, just didn't really pass the eye test for me. And I just wonder if he can be that 90-plus ruckman that we'd probably want him to be a selection there. And then Joe Berry, bit similar to Dan Curtin, had good moments, but didn't score amazing. Again, we get to see him. I'm not going to overreact for a rookie, and I don't think we're going to this early. Just one to watch. But, yeah, not huge scoring. We'll see what his role looks like. But he did have some good moments. His left foot definitely looks like he's got a good kick on him. And then Josh Sin, 18 points. Tom, He was essentially invisible. I didn't even notice him. I think he had a kick in the first 10 seconds. That's the only thing I remember noticing. Is he just crossed out for you? Do you think at this point with some better options?
I don't think I've ever seen him play a good game of footy. So
he hasn't.
Not for me.
That's the point.
Not for me. Not for me. I think he's a hopeful one with the amount of Adelaide and Port Adelaide-based content creators, rather than anything we've actually seen on a.
That's bloody Crowy. There you go.
He and Bales, you say you saw him only get one kick. I think I saw him have about 3. But most importantly, his first kick was a turnover, and that very much typifies the Josh Sid experience. And it really, rather, is the exception that proves the rule that all left footers are good kicks.
Yeah, exactly. So, yeah, I think he's, unless he goes absolutely gangbusters this week, I just don't think he's going to be an option for us there. We'll move on to the 2 games from the Saturday. But before we do, it's been mentioned on the last couple of pods, but we do have a new sponsor for this season on the podcast, and that is our good friends at Game Day Squads. They're partnering up with us for this season. So they're another fantasy platform where, again, brings the best of FIFA Ultimate Team and opening footy cards as a kid, brings it all together where you can open packs and get some players, and they score fantasy points for you. You can win cash prizes each week. You can win extra packs and players and build your club out. And it's a dynasty format where you keep those players the rest of their career. So make sure you guys get involved with that and use the code I keep saying at BAILSDT. I'm so used to saying that. Use the code just BAILSDT at sign up, and you'll get 3 free packs straight up worth $21. So straight up, just for putting in a code, you get those. So that's BAILSDT for the code there. So make sure you guys go and sign up there. It should be a good season. And they've got opening round and finals as well. So if you are a fantasy nut like me, want to play fantasy a little bit longer, then make sure you get around it. Cool. We'll move on to the 2 games from yesterday. So North Melbourne and Melbourne. So we'll start off with North Melbourne. Main midfield 3 for them was Tom Powell, LDU, and Harry Sheasel. Harry Sheasel just racked up all day, scored 107 points, and looked fantastic. Playing mostly mid in the first half. Played all over the ground after halftime, a bit more forward. So, I don't think there's any dramas there. Just depends if we can really pay up for him. Tim is, obviously, we've chatted about Sheasel a couple of times, but if he's scoring well, you interested, not keen? Where are you sitting with Sheasel?
Look, I'm not really that keen. I mean, midfielders struggled to score over 110 last year. What makes me think that a midfielder like Sheasel's going to do that? I mean, look, maybe he will, but I just don't see a lot of value there. So, I'm searching for more value in my defensive line than Harry Sheasel. But look, on the flip side of it, we talk about those players that can potentially take a season away from you. It does worry me that Sheasel does have that capability, but I just don't think it's in that role. I think it's more if he played the halfback role. So that's where I'm willing to fade him.
Yeah. Moving down here, Caleb Daniel did exactly what we expected him to do. The number 1 distributor for North Melbourne, scoring 95, taking kick-ins, even kicked a goal as well, which was pretty good. So I think he's just a lock. Tom Power continues impressive preseason, 95 points there, about the 800k mark. So in that mix with your Will Ashcrofts, your Dohertys, your Cheras, your Will Days, in and around that price. So if you're keen on Power and think he's going to go big this year, then he's certainly one that you could pick. Luke Parker was solid, splitting time between midfield and forward, scored 76 and was solid. Tom, is he anyone that you're considering F1? Obviously, we've got Horn Francis, Rankin, Baker, few others. Is he someone that you're considering starting?
I just think his ceiling's going to be capped. Like, he's not got a true mid-roll. He's definitely going to be spending time forward. I think there's a lot of... I say what you're saying, he's not in the main 3. Jai Simpkins to come back into the side. What's Will Phillips doing? Is he still running a tagger? Is Colby going to run through there? Is Finn O'Sullivan going to run through there? I think there's just lots of people they've got a lot of depth in that midfield, players to fit into those 3 slots, each centre bounce. So he's definitely going to play in forward time. I think that, to me, if I'm paying for someone priced at 80 plus, I think that's a no for me.
Yeah, I think there's a few options ahead of him as well. I was just hearing a little bit of, I don't know, static or something. Tom, I don't know if it's from headphones or anything like that. So possibly. I don't know if anyone else could hear that or if that was just me, but could be just me. You never know. Tristan Cherry scored 62 from 3 quarters. I'm going to say he didn't look like trying. There was about 4 or 5 times he was going to lay a tackle and he sort of either let go or just didn't worry about it. So don't be concerned with 62. When the real stuff gets going, I think he's going to lay the tackles. Just, again, the big question. And we actually did have a question that popped up about Tristan Cherry, if I can find it. So, Andrew Grivers saying here, Liam, not sold on Cherry's first 5 fixtures because they're pretty bad for rucks. He said, why are we picking him? Is it just because there are no rucks? And obviously his ownership is quite high as well. Round 1's good against English, but he's got a pretty tough run after. Where do you sit with him? Are you starting him because there's just questions on the others and there's not as many on Cherry? Or what are your thoughts with him at the moment?
Yeah, pretty much. It's you're starting him in part because there are questions about some of the value propositions we had at the beginning of the season. And I think Dominators talks about sometimes just going with the crowd on these early picks. I think the very least you're probably locking in one great score against English to start the year, and then probably just going, let's get through 5 weeks and pray that you're not having to trade him in at some later point in the year. I think if we'd had better news on Darcy and he was playing, and there was better news on Tom De Koning, even if Kieran Briggs had an uninterrupted preseason, I think there'd be a lot lower ownership for Tristan Cherry. But yeah, all those factors combined, I can see why. I haven't looked in a while, but I think he was up at 50% above the last time I looked. So I see why it's there. It's just probably just get through to the start of the season and then start making trades.
Yeah, 54.7%. So dropped a couple of percent last couple of days. So still obviously very high. But I think Marshall was the one. I think when he went down, he was the guy that had the good early run, and people were probably looking at him. But with him sort of touch and go, well, Ross Lyon says it's a guarantee for round 1, so we'll see. But yeah, Tristan Cherry, it's going to be very, very interesting to see how he can go. And I guess the thing with 3 of those 4 hard matchups, best 18, and you've got probably two cracks of the captain that week anyway. If you've got a Brayshaw or a Bont or a Dawson, Sheasel, Van Oliver, or someone else starts putting up good scores, you've probably got other options. So even if he just ticks over the hundreds, it might not be the end of the world, especially if those other rucks have got questions. Colby McKercher played mostly wing and half forward. Again, looked good. He's obviously a very, very good player. I just don't think it's going to be what we need for our fantasy team. Scored 59 points. So I just think we got other players. There's another one from Melbourne that we're going to chat about very shortly that's around that same price that could be a better pick. And Finn O'Sullivan was quiet playing on a wing, scoring just 26 points. I mentioned before, North Melbourne did say that he's more of an impact player than an accumulator. So I think probably just got to temper expectations with him. I guess the lack of these mid-rooks with a few going down. I think his job security is good. We probably start him, but maybe he's a bench M9 or something like that instead of being that on-field guy that a few people like myself had him on field. Moving to Melbourne. So there was 2 main midfielders for Melbourne being Trent Rivers and Clayton Oliver. Cozzy Pickett, Harvey Langford, Bailey Laurie were the other guys that played over 40%, keeping in mind Christian Petrarca and Jack Viney didn't play. But Trent Rivers, Tim, was the one that went big. 115 points, game high there. Obviously, got to remember that Petrarca and Viney was there. So I guess you're probably still thinking that you got to watch it and see where he sits in that pecking order with those other 3 midfielders.
Yeah, I mean it's looking promising. But yeah, I mean, where does he sit in the in the pecking order, right? And the further he drops down, the further it kind of reduces his scoring potential, right? And but look, I think he's also someone that we should be considering because he's offering at least some value in that defensive line, which is, it's previously was that defensive line was the tough one to pick, right? But certainly that ruck line is the one that's causing us the biggest complications at the moment.
Yeah. Tom, is Trent Rivers moved up for you? Obviously, got to see his midfielders as well. Are you looking at potentially starting him?
He's in my team at the minute, so we'll go with that. I think
D1 or D2?
D4. D2. I didn't know where short was above or below him. D2. I think the thing that hopefully we get the answer for next week or the week after is he in the main 4 with as you mentioned, Petrarca, Oliver, Viney, and Rivers? And is the one of those 4 which is going to move out to play some of their time Petrarca forward, or is it Rivers back? If it's Rivers back, I'm off. If it's Petrarca forward, who's going to play half forward, half mid, which we know he has done with some very good success for Melbourne, then I'm definitely more keen on Rivers.
Yeah. The only flag I'd raise about Rivers is that Meniz Wakefield went down, I think, ACL today. Judd McVee's got a serious hamstring. I don't know if Meniz Wakefield was best 22, but is there a world where Rivers goes back in defence and those other guys are back? He's been trained as a midfielder pre-season. I think he's going to play midfield. I'm just throwing it out there that he may play in defence with a few injuries. I don't think it's likely, but just a flag there. Harvey Langford looked really impressive, and I think he's, if we're doing rookie mid-ranks, I think he's probably number one. I think he looked fantastic. He's got a great left foot on him, massive kick. He'll get a sprinkling of CBAs, obviously, with those other guys back, but he's going to be there. He's probably going to get forward status in round 6, playing a bit forward and look good, getting off the ground and getting a few +6s. So he's definitely someone I think we're all going to have on our ground in round 1. Clayton Oliver looked good in and around the contest, did his thing, scored 54 points, didn't play in the fourth quarter as well. And this was a weird sort of game. They did like 3-minute drills of like being up by 8 points and whatever. So, Clayton Oliver will be a good watch this week, but he's looking really good, Liam.
I contest that he looked really good. I thought he looked okay.
I shouldn't say really good. He looked good, yeah. Not really good.
He had some good bursts, but I don't think he looked like the most explosive midfielder when he was in there. And I don't even think he looked like the second most explosive midfielder at times when he was in there. I think Harvey Langford showed a bit of explosion. I like some of it. There was a few follow-up handball efforts, but there's not much kicking. And it still, like, he had one clearance, I think it was at the end of the first quarter, that I really liked and went, yep, that looks like old Clary. I still haven't seen it yet. I still haven't seen Clary of old, Clary of 2023, Clary of 2022. Was it 2022 when he was like a million points better than everyone? He was incredible. I still haven't seen that yet. And he's been a walk-up start for most people. He's got one of the highest ownerships for a non-rookie. It's astronomical. I just actually want to implore people to what am I watching here? Because it's not like it's we know why he's down on price. Actually have a look at how many games he played last year. He played a lot of football and played a lot of bad footy. And he's got a bad run to start with for potential tags, for potential attention. I just want to urge some caution with just locking Clary away into your team because he has a lot more to prove than I think people are giving him credit for.
Yeah, good flag. 48.1% is his current ownership there, and he's the second most owned midfielder behind Levi Ashcroft. Obviously, Jagger Smith there as well, but he's obviously going to go down in ownership over the next few days there. And then Xavier Lindsay as well was pretty solid on a wing. Did go quiet for parts of the game, scored 33, but as we said with these rookies going down, I think he's going to play and be on there on a wing for us. So, and I think grounds like the MCG are going to be a lot better for someone like Xavier Lindsay to get some +6s. So, he was okay. Moving to the final game, Carlton versus St Kilda. So main midfield 3 for Carlton was George Hewitt, Adam Cerra and Paddy Cripps, with Sam Doherty being that fourth midfielder and playing over 40% CBAs. And Tom, for me, I thought Doherty impressed me. He started on the bench, but then would come, I think he started on the bench, but he'd come on and be that sort of fourth midfield that would replace one of the guys on field. Obviously, with Jagger Smith not being there, obviously now for this season, is Sam Doherty, if he's playing more of that midfield role and not that wing, is he someone that you potentially might start with that a good early season run, including Richmond in the first game?
So we've obviously got Sam Walsh to come back into this side. So that's a major CBA. With, he's going to be part of the top 3, you would imagine. I've called a lot on Doherty, and I actually watched some of this game. The other game I've actually seen this pre-season. He just looked a bit old and clunky in comparison to some of especially the St Kilda mids who will come on to, I thought were amazing. There's something about it. I'm just like, is he going to be the guy who's going to take his average from 74, 75, whatever he's priced at, up to 95, 100? Or is he going to be an 85? And Ollie Wines of last year, kind of a slower burn. I'm going to play 65% time on ground and play a bit of wing, play a bit of half forward, play a bit of inside mid, maybe a bit of half back at times and just kind of Mr. Fix-It kind of that Carlton side? Or is he going to have a proper, distinct, defined role? Because if he doesn't have that proper role, I just don't think he's going to be able to maximise the scoring like I think we'd hope him to.
Yeah, he could even fill like that, what Matt Cratch done for the Crows, right? He might play 65, 70% game time and just be that midfield burst player that comes on for 5-10 minutes a quarter, goes off for a few minute break, maybe. That's sort of what he was looking like doing. So, yeah, just something to watch. Maybe you don't start him. Maybe we have a watch, but obviously then you miss out on that Richmond matchup, which sucks a bit. Obviously, we talked about De Koning before. Obviously, split time. Had a 40-odd point quarter, scored 73 points. As we said, I think it's as simple as if Pitney's named round one, we just pivot away. If he's not named, I think a lot of us are going to start because of the lack of options there. Adam Chera looked okay, scored 69 points, Tim. Is he someone that's been in and around Guesty's gerbils through the preseason?
He was in my team at one point. Look, the big concern is obviously his body and how that's going to go, but he's the kind of player that you want to start, right? Like if you don't really want to bring one of these players into your side, but if you're going to start a player like this, at least you can get off him in the first few weeks, or and I think that I think there's definitely upside there as well. But I mean, the midfield, there's just so many options. So he's not in my side at the moment. But look, he's kind of floating on the edge there. We'll see what happens over the remaining preseason games, and But like I said, I'm just fading on him because I just think there's way too many options in the midfield, and obviously with that injury risk, I think I prefer to go another way.
Yeah, Liam, question without notice: rank Clayton Oliver, Adam Chera, Sam Doherty, and Will Day out of those four.
Oof. So. Yeah, I still think it's Clary 1. And then then Day, then Doherty, then Chera. But it's a tight grouping in those last three. I really don't love splitting them at the moment.
Where would Will Ashcroft fit in that as well if you were to put him in?
Fifth.
Okay.
Neither Ashcroft are currently in my team.
Okay.
Yeah, right. Yep. Yeah. Well, as I said,
Levi, I don't know if he plays or if he's a sub straight away.
Yeah. We chatting that just before you came on, and the fact that he wasn't in that best 22 in the first two quarters has me a little bit concerned. But again, opening round we get to see him, and we'll see what happens with him there. Ollie Hollands, really, I was quite impressed with the role. I like that role. Looks really good. Looks like that Nick Martin type sort of role just off the back of stoppage. Obviously, Martin, I think, is a better player than Ollie Hollands, but that's what we wanted to see. We want to see that role. Took a couple of kick-ins as well. So I think that he's a decent option priced just over 600K. Liam, do you want to say something there?
Yeah, I wouldn't have said it was the Martin role. I actually said I thought it looked more like Adam Sard. And I liked what I saw. It just had a couple of really quiet patches, and those are patches where Sard looked really good. So it's going to be a big watch for me in this next set of practice matches, just to see whether or not they're stepping on each other's toes, or it's just due to some inexperience from Hollands and off that half back line. I just thought I saw them playing a really similar brand of football and popping up in some of the same places. I just wonder if that neuters some of Holland's upside.
Yeah. Tom, is with Hollands, the fact you would imagine you get DPP in round 6, does the average, if it's a little bit lower, like an 85, does that still make him as appealing even if we want him to go like a 90 because he'll get that extra position in round 6?
Give me 85 now. I'll run to the bank. I don't care about DPP. That's 25 points of upside. Like, it's cash gen at the end of the day. It might mean you have to get off him a bit earlier than what you'd want to, but that's a perfect. Oh, he's slowing down. He's gone up 200K. Fabulous. I'll chuck him. I'll chuck a rookie on top of him and go to a premium. I think we don't need to be greedy. Hollands and Peatling and Sartis, one of Liam's boys, are in a different bracket. They're cheaper. You just want cash. They're almost going to be your first upgrades, not your under your 750 plus kind of guys who you're looking at underpriced premiums at taking them to all the way to their buy, even maybe slightly beyond their buy, because you think that they could be best 10, 12 of their line. Whereas priced at 60. We just want cash. If he Carlton have a really nice draw to start the year. If Hollands goes bang, bang, bang first few games and gets off to a flyer, and then the role might settle down. That's fine. We can fling him off and get rid. I really liked what I saw from Hollands.
Yeah. Well, we're not going to chat much about Essendon today, but obviously Liam being the Bombers man, I want to get your thoughts on Elijah Sardis. Obviously plays opening round. We get a free look. I know that when we were watching that, I think it was North Melbourne and Essendon, when I was over in Melbourne watching that game together, Sardis was a topic of discussion a few times throughout that game. As I said, opening round, we get a watch, see what he scores. What are your thoughts with him going into the year?
He's got a massive value prop. Just because I think he'll be inside the Bombers' top 4 mids. I think there's a very clear top 4 with Parrish out. It's Zeret, Sartis, Caldwell, Durham, and then it starts to get murky. I think that it is as much as I think his kicking is still atrocious, even though apparently works up on it after every training session, and credit to him, he still can't hit a target. It's not as bad as Josh Sin, but it's still not good. I think that, but what I did see in that game against the Western Bulldogs is he's got some real great stoppage craft. He's very, very good as a first possession midfielder. And funnily enough, the game, I actually think it almost models himself or mirrors is kind of the first season Dylan Shield at Essendon, like 2019, 2020, when Dylan Shield wasn't the same accumulator as he was at GWS and covered as much space, but he was really good at getting his hands first on stoppage and weaving his way through as a bigger bodied player. I definitely think there's upside in Sardis. It's just going to come down to how he looks, and if he looks like someone who can stay in the side for 6 weeks. Because I think that's the big risk. I do think that Darcy Parish potentially coming back may see him leave the midfield, because I don't think I love the Bombers midfield balance if it's Sartis and Parish and Caldwell, for example, or and then you're trying to add in Durham as a fifth. I think that starts to get really murky, and Sartis does not have another role on this team. He's shown himself he is not a forward, and he is a dreadful winger. So it's CBAs or bust.
Yeah. Could be the perfect buy play. You start him, has a good score running round, again, round 4, trade him off, and he's made maybe 100, 150K or whatever he gets. So, yep, something to be watching there. We'll move to St Kilda, because I think there's a lot of good nuggets in the St Kilda side, and I was really impressed with a lot of players from here. So, very, very tight midfield mix for St Kilda. Only 4 players attended CBAs that weren't rucks. The main 3 were Jack Steele, Jack McRae, and Hugo Garcia, who is the interesting name there. Hugh Boxall was the only other St Kilda mid that went there. So very, very interesting to see how that looks this week and going into the season. But, Jack Steele did Jack Steele things, 126 points, highest scorer from all the match sim games. I couldn't knock anyone if you wanted to start him at M1, to be honest. So he was very, very good. Nasai Wangani Miller, who's a new addition to my team. Shout out to DC for chatting about that on the head-to-head episode. He's made his way to D1 for me, and could be a little bit of upside there as well. So really big fan of him. Sinclair didn't play, but still, Nasai was very, very good. Jack McRae, just a lock, 104 points, played pure midfield and looked more like the Jack McRae that we know. And I think he'll be a solid scorer for us there. Hugo Garcia, though, Tim, 421k mid forward. He showed signs last year of his game. He's a good VFL player. I think he averaged well over 100 in the VFL. Looks, if he's got this midfield role in the top 3 or 4 midfielders, is he someone you're going to be looking at as an F5 option, maybe F6 if you want to push it a bit deeper? Is he someone that you're going to be considering?
Oh, hell yeah. Look, I didn't think he was going to kind of play that high in that midfield rotation, but, obviously not sure how it's all going to play out over the preseason games. But if he's getting anywhere near that level of CBA, he's priced at 40. He's been in my forward line for a while at F5, and I don't see him moving. So, I didn't see this game, but what I've read and what I've heard about it, I'm, pretty excited.
Yeah, well, shout out Harmy, who I know who's been a big Hugo Garcia fan. He's going to be pretty popular. And obviously, shout out to Didac DT as well. JS, who was saying that in the fourth quarter was getting a little bit of attention on the bench some rub downs there. So scored 80 points in essentially 3 quarters. So if he's even scoring 80 in 4 quarters, I think we're taking that to the bank. So if he's going to do more than that, that'd be fantastic. Liam?
Yeah, I think the one other thing I really liked from him was seeing him actually get his hands on the ball. He was a cuddle merchant last year, both in the VFL and then in the sparing roles that he saw at AFL level. I think he had over 20 touches. That's a really good sign. If he can back that up again with a decent high possession game, I'm not talking anything outrageous, anything above 20. I think his natural tackling ability, I think he's a 70 as a floor in that role if he plays. So, yeah, he's someone who's been in my side or in and around my side for quite a while now, and I definitely like what I saw.
Yep, hopefully we see it again this week. Harry Boyd was solid in the ruck, scored 76 points. If he's named round 1, I think he's a pretty easy R3 there, and maybe even utility if you want to do if read his name, then you're starting a Briggs or something like that. But he was pretty good. There was 3 rookies for St Kilda that impressed me, Tom. Max Hall, 230k, was pretty good, scored 75. Angus Hasty, obviously we know a little bit from last year, scored 67, 230k mid. And then Hugh Boxall, who could be a round 1 bolter. Don't actually know what he scored in the game, but looked pretty good and was one of those other midfielders. Obviously, a guy like I don't know if Hunter Clark's injured. He normally is always injured, but I don't know if he's going to play this week. Any of those 3 sort of up for in the ranks for you? Because I'm pretty keen on a Max Hall after watching his performance.
Yeah, Max Hall was the standout to me. I love the mid-forward status as well. It gives that little bit of flexibility, especially with quite a few of our forward rookies and mid-rookies not having any DPP, being forward only, mid only. Having that swingman in those 2 lines can often be quite useful in the other end of the season when you're trying to jump on the rookies that you maybe don't see that do pop. One thing that we do know about Ross is he doesn't mind giving the kids a go, unlike maybe like an Adelaide who likes to go a bit slow with their younger players. St Kilda have no option. Half their squad are injured, so we've got to give the kids a go, and that could be us fancy coaches' benefit. They're going to get some decent roles.
Yeah, exactly. Shout out to Sean as well in the chat, said Boxall scored 79. So, 230k mid as well. Liam?
That fend off on Paddy Cripps was amazing.
Yeah.
Delightful. I really like Boxall.
He showed good strength. He braked a lot of tackles as well.
Yeah, he's big. I really liked what I saw from him. I think with Max Hall, I'm obviously going to pay a lot more attention to him in the next game. I've just got some queries on what his role is in that side at St Kilda if they go into round 1. Is he playing as a high half forward? Is he playing as a forward? Is Liam Henry back from his injury recovery at that stage? Because I love his pedigree. He had 170 in the VFL last year when he was still playing for Box Hill. 1 tackle away from a quadruple double. And he kicked 2 goals in that game as well. So he has some serious capability, but he's a bit of a tweener. He's a bit of a mid-forward, like truly someone who doesn't have a natural position, I don't think, just yet. I'm really going to be watching the next game and also reading and listening to what St Kilda has to say about what his role will be. If I get some confidence that he'll still be there in a month, I think he's a great pick.
Yeah, especially as that M10 with some other of these rookies going down as well. Might be able to save a bit of cash there as well. The big flag, though, I think, from this game, though, was our 46% owned defender mid, Toby Travalia, 319k. He came in the last quarter, scored 20, scored a nice goal, but it's concerning that your Garcia got a lot of opportunity, Boxall got opportunity, Max Hall, Angus Hasty, and Toby Travalia was left until last quarter. We get to watch again this week. Just a flag if you've got him locked away in your D6, D7, that he could be a prime sort of green vest round 1 that could come on in a game and impact late. So just something to note with him as well sitting there. Cool. That is the games. There. We'll answer a couple of questions just before we wrap up here. So going through the list, Andrew Groove's asking about Josh Smiley. Liam, there's talk that he may play this week. Obviously, he's had an interrupted preseason with a hamstring injury. If he was to play this week and look okay, would he be someone that you might look at with a few of these other mids going down?
Yeah, definitely. Like, he's got the fantasy pedigree. He's not off the list, but he's certainly not in a draft team of mine at the moment.
Yeah. Stefan Papalia, Tim, says he's currently got Hollins, Peatling, Sardis, Oliver, and Day. Is that too much? I know, obviously, the GOAT Selby was saying if they're all value, you can pick them all if you want. But is that too many having 5?
Feels heavy, especially with the concerns about Sardis that Liam was talking about before. Who else was in there? So
Holland, Peatling.
Look, Hollins and Peatling, I definitely think they're in my side at the moment. Oliver, obviously we'll see how things play out with plantar fasciitis, but I think you're going to be pretty hard. It's going to be pretty hard to get off him. What are those last couple of names?
Oliver and Day.
Day. Look, the thing so we were talking about Day not that long ago, Bales, and you brought up his run at the beginning of the season. And I think that was something that you were concerned about. Is that right? Am I remembering that right?
Yeah. His run was quite difficult to start with. The fact that he's got a fair few of these harder games early, and potentially there could be some attention also going his way, because obviously we know how good a player and damaging a player Will Day. So he's got Sydney opening round. Then he's got the Bombers, Carlton, GWS, which, again, could all pose some sort of attention to him. Then he's got the early bye. Then he's got Port. But then he goes into Geelong, West Coast, Richmond, Melbourne, Gold Coast, which is great. So I was normally off of him, but I'm starting to potentially warm to where he could be a bit of if he scores well opening round, you're hoping he's going to go well. But if he didn't, he could make some cash in round 1. And you could always pivot to the guy that is going off. So that's something that I may consider. But Tom, what do you think with him?
Well, I think we're looking at the start of the year. Our only real goal is cash gen, and that run that you just said doesn't scream to me someone who's going to average 95, get off to a flyer, get that cash rolling. It's more okay, he's got a great run from round 6 onwards. Is he someone who's going to hold cash for a few weeks, and then it's someone we can get a rookie up to? Or even sideways a Sartis if he's lost his... If Darcy Parish comes back in and he ends up playing less time on ground or something and caps out. Like, he seems to me as an upgrade target. Great player, will definitely benefit from pressure-free footy in pre-season games. Didn't surprise me that he went really well against Geelong, who are an easy midfield, or were an easy midfield last year anyway. If you let him run, he will just kill you, and I don't think that's going to happen when the real footy starts.
Yeah. Bradley Smith saying, "Hey guys, love the content." Thanks, mate. Very much appreciate that. Surely Nasai, Wanganeen, Miller is a must in the backline with Sinclair interrupted pre-season. Bonner had 50-plus kick-ins. He's gone, and Sinclair maybe more midfield. He's a lock. So, Liam, what are your thoughts with a Nasai, Wanganeen, Miller?
Oh, love him as a pick. It's not exactly for those reasons alone. I think it's losing Battle, and it's also losing what's his name? I just think that there's so much ball to be soaked up back there, and even if what's his name, Sinclair's playing, there's not enough for just one player to be their main driver off halfback. And I would say as well, and it'll be interesting to see if this hold when Sinclair gets back. I saw a few times when they were playing against Carlton, Naz was sitting as the one handball back defensive player from stoppages on that high half forward area. That's a really good sign for the role that he's going to get long term. So I really like it.
Yeah. And if I'm not mistaken, I didn't see Ari Schoenmaker out there.
No. Ari didn't play.
Was he managed, injured? Just didn't get
selected. Just didn't play by the sounds of it.
So a bit of a flag. We'll have to see if he plays this week. But he's obviously a popular sort of D5, D6 option if people are going a bit deeper there. Gorn Mad was saying Bailey Humphrey looked nice. Could be some value. I just don't know if he breaks in enough to the Gold Coast midfield to be an option, but he looked good, and I think he'll definitely improve. One probably for draft. It's probably going to get him late, but I'm not quite sure if we start him. Maybe he's got round 2 bye. Maybe unless he goes bananas in opening round, it could be an upgrade target if he is going really, really good there. Her overconfident Crom supporter. My takeaway is that we're going all the way, mate. I hope we do, but that name is fitting. He's probably a bit overconfident, but I like it. I definitely won't knock you for being overconfident on the Crows. Damon Snell, Tim, says, with another rookie mid going down with injury, do we think more mature priced players are better options like a Hutchinson, a Garcia, and an O'Driscoll? Particularly, obviously, we'll focus on O'Driscoll being that mid. Is that something that you might consider paying up a little bit more for guys, maybe high 300s, low 400s?
I'm considering Jack Hutchinson in the forward line. I think depending on how the preseason plays out, I think I like some value there. Hugo Garcia, we've already talked about. And then who was it? The mid we were talking about?
O'Driscoll.
Luke, I have concerns about his scoring ability. So, I mean, once again, I had the kids this weekend, right? So I didn't have a huge amount of time to do research, but I did do a little bit of a dive into his stats last week, and I'm just concerned about his ability to average enough for him to be a worthwhile pick in the midfield. What's he priced at?
40 something, yeah. Be like 44 or something, I think.
If he was to average the same as Jeremy Sharp, would you pick him?
First half of the year, yes, I think Sharp went I think Ball was saying went like something like 80, over 80. So if you're doing that, that's, I think, a good pick.
Well, I must admit, and just to kind of bounce back, when I was doing my research, that was before all our bloody mid rookies went down. So, and I guess what I was kind of sitting there is going, look, well, compared to some of the rookie options we've got, I don't think he's going to make enough. But now that we've lost some of them, I might have to readjust my view.
Yeah, the positive is he's not vested.
He's going to get some CBAs too.
Yeah,
he's been at some.
He got some today. Freo did a probables versus possibles intra-club today, and he got a few CBAs in that game. Other interesting takeaway, apart from the fact that Caleb Sarong kicked 4 goals, was Liam Reedy was the main ruck for the probables again, despite getting towelled up by the Eagles' 5th choice ruckman in the Indigenous All-Stars game.
Oh, didn't get towelled up. He still had like 30 hit-outs. What are you waffle?
It was a very waffle ruck.
It was a very waffle ruck performance, that's for sure.
No, so I've got Nod in my team. I think I can't remember. I would love to give the credit to who put this stat up. I think if he goes 70, it's the equivalent of 300k ruck going 59.
That was Vams.
Vams, shout out to you. And I was like, I can see Nod going 70 way more likely than I can than I said a Layla going 59 with a mid-forward role. He's shown, I think in his second game of AFL, he scored a ton. Freo loved scoring on the wings. It was Jeremy Sharp last year. Liam Henry the year before finished the year with like a house on fire with that mid-row wing role.
Even Jagger Abira can put up an 80 or a 90 at times. Matthew Johnson got some minutes there.
So I think it's I think he's safe best 22, 23. So unless I hear different, then he's kind of a nice M6 halfway house when we're starting to run out of rookies we're confident in scoring well.
Yeah. Well, Thomas, as obviously someone finished second last year, what are your thoughts of, you mentioned Reedy, what are your thoughts about him as, I don't think I can quite get around the R2 just because if he fails, where are you going? R3 though, if he's named round 1 and that number 1 ruck, what are your thoughts with starting him to make some cash gen on the bench?
Very short on the R2. If you're going to start him R2, it could be an absolute smash play, but you've got to be okay with trading a premium if it goes wrong. You've got to look at yourself in the mirror and go, if this is going wrong or he gets dropped, your least scoring premium's just got to go, because that's where you're getting enough money to get him up to somebody. And it's a sideways trade, and it'll stunt your overall cash gen. So you've got to work out whether the cash you've made previously is worth the the week of not upgrading your side or making a proper fix-up trade. R3, possibly. I need to have a look what Freo's red dot run is like, because I don't think he's going to be there for that long, even if Darcy's not back. If Freo get off to a poor start, I think it's Geelong away and Sydney in the first 2 games. If they'll lose both those games, he could be the scapegoat that goes.
Yeah, definitely something to watch, but could be an R3 option that we may go for. Final 2 questions, and we'll wrap up here. One comes from, and I definitely have to say this, Nerman Berdar said, Jordan Dawson, a good pick. Absolutely, M1, pick him, 120 plus average incoming. You heard it here first. No, seriously, though, I think he's a good pick. I think the Rankin coming back is going to be interesting. I don't think Dawson's going to be heavily affected by Rankin, but we get to watch. I just think too many forwards for the Crows. He's not going to go forward. Wingman, there was no Shoal, no Cumming playing in the game, and he didn't play any wing. He might go floating back in defence, but hey, if he's doing that, +6s he gets. So, Liam?
Well, he still played forward, though.
2 minutes
still
stint.
Spent time.
Two minutes stint. And
he's still not a good forward. I to be honest,
I don't think. I agree.
Adelaide. I don't understand how it is that they decided to bring in the 4 players that they did, given what they already had on the list. I love Jordan Dawson. He's very highly in contention for M1, but I am not confident that he will not get moved into the forward line. And I think that someone like Dan Curtin is probably being slightly overrated for his ability to stay in this team, because that is a player who doesn't have a natural position being thrown in at 3rd tall, 4th tall forward.
Yeah.
Don't love it. It's not. It doesn't. Adelaide don't feel like a balanced team, and I feel uneasy saying anything confidently about them.
If Curtin is named as the 4th tall, I'm very confident about Dawson. Is basically where my line is, because he's not going forward. You can't have 5 talls up there.
Well, it'd be 5 talls and then Alex Neil-Bilbon.
Yeah, it's like the tallest forward line in AFL history.
Wasn't Curtin Brenner's a midfielder?
Defender.
No, key back, yeah.
Key back.
And a half-back / he played, I think, in his underage year, he was playing as a bit of a mid, and then was key back for most of his his final year, but then had a few games for WA in the under-18s where he was an inside mid, looked amazing. He doesn't have a natural position. I think it's a problem. He's a big, strong guy, but doesn't dominate as a mid. And I just don't know if Adelaide know what he's doing. And that sounds like he's a perfect encapsulation for Adelaide itself. I don't actually know if they know what they're doing with their team construction. Many?
No, gross slander.
I'm not saying the players are bad, Bales. The players aren't bad. I just don't understand. Why have you got 6 players who are 191 centimetres for your defence? Why do you have 5 tall forwards to pick from? Why do you have 3 inside midfielders who are actually wingers who are now inside midfielders? It doesn't make sense.
Yeah. No, you make good points.
And Riley O'Brien in the row.
No, don't go near that. We'll leave it there.
We'll move to the final question. Is from Mr. Red Footy. Who are your current starting rookies in your side at the moment? So we'll go round the room, starting with Tom. How many rookies do you have on field at the moment, and who are they?
I currently have technically 2 actual rookies, but 4 players under 400k, and they are currently Ashcroft, Langford, Jackson Pryor in defence, and one of Hewitt, Stone, and Davidson in my forward line. I haven't decided which one I'm put on field yet. So currently 4 under 400k.
I am only 3. I am Pryor, Langford, and then that same trio of forwards.
Yeah. Tim?
If you count Jack Hutchison, I guess he's under 400k. That's 4. But look, I haven't really paid attention to who's on field. Right, I've got Langford, Draper, and O'Sullivan, but they're just kind of placeholders at the moment. I haven't, they're not ranked. If you know what I mean.
Yeah. I got 4 as well, so it seems like 4 is probably where people are leaning to at the moment. I've got Jackson Pryor in defence. Midfield, I've got Harvey Langford and Finn O'Sullivan, but as I said, could be like a Lindsay or Smiley if I bring him in. So 2 in the midfield, and then I've got Elijah Hewitt as my only forward rookie. So currently sitting with the 4 as well.
One thing I will say is I'll start with 3 or 4 probably, but I can almost guarantee I have more than that by the end of round 2 or round 3.
Yeah.
Because we've got a lot of mid prices and not all of them will work. And the easiest way to deal with them is to go 1 up, 1 down with 2 mid prices. Yeah. So that's one thing I will say as a caveat going forward.
Very, very good point. Cool. That will be us done for the episode. But if you've got any other questions, then make sure you head over to our Patreon, patreon.com/AFL Fantasy Fanatics. Link is in the description below as well. So you can ask all your questions there. I'm doing exclusive Q&A for the Patreon members there, recording that tomorrow. So if you guys want to join up tonight and get your questions in, I can answer more of those. But also we have a cash league as well for Patreon members. Sign up before round 1 and you could take some money home. The more people that get involved, the more the prize pool will be potentially for first, second, and third. So make sure you guys check that out there. Patreon.com/AFL Fantasy Fanatics. Link is in the description of the podcast and the video. Thank you very much for everyone that tuned in live, and particularly those people that sent in their questions and got involved in the live chat. Make sure you guys smash a like on the video for us and subscribe to our YouTube channel. But thank you very much to our 2 guests. Tom, mate, thank you for coming on once again. Where can the people find you across the socials, and what can we be expecting in the couple of weeks before the season kicks off?
Yeah, thanks for having me again, Bales Guesty. Always a pleasure to be on. You'll find me on X at Tom_Hales_. And next weekend, the semi-proper footy starts, and then the opening round starts. So just consuming as much content, watching as many games. There's some very smart minds out there. Listen to them all, see which ones you resonate with, and go from there.
Yeah, beautiful, mate. Thank you very much for coming on. Liam, mate, thank you very much for jumping on with us. Where can the people find you, and what can they expect from you for the rest of the pre-season into the season proper?
Well, you can find me on Twitter, Blue Sky, at Liam AFLW Fantasy. Probably having a whinge about rucks or people that can't kick. And in terms of the rest of the pre-season, I've got an episode coming out on the coaches panel. We talk about draft. And then I've also got an episode I did with Lemon for his new podcast, all about role and role identification, which is probably the most fun I've had on a podcast. No offense intended for anyone on here in a very, very long time, at least for the men's. There's a real deep dive into roles and position identification and all some of the great markers. So that's coming out tomorrow, and I would highly recommend giving it a listen.
Yeah, beautiful, mate. Thank you very much for jumping on with us. Tim, where can people find you? And just another plug for the Infinite Wealth.
Yeah. Look, Tim Guest AU on all the socials, and then make sure you get along to register if you want to be a part of the 20th coach. Well, want to be the 20th coach in the Content Creators Cup at infinitewealth.com.au/AFL Fantasy.
Yeah, and the links for that is in the description of the video and the podcast. You can find me at BAILSDT, and you can find us at AFL Fantasy Fans across the socials. And if you are listening back to the podcast and could leave us a 5-star rating and review, that'd be very much appreciated. Like, subscribe on YouTube. If you want to join the Patreon, make sure you do that. And we got a special episode coming out in a few days. Me and Tim will be sitting down with the GOAT, Selby, chatting about strategy and what to watch for in the community series games, and chatting about a few other topics as well. So stay tuned for that. Probably Thursday that'll drop as well. So make sure you guys stick around for that. Have a good week, guys, and enjoy the community series that starts on Tuesday. So only a couple of days away. Enjoy those games. We'll recap all of those next Sunday night live there. Same time, same place on YouTube. Thanks for watching. We'll catch you guys in the next one. See ya.
See ya.